The news continues to come out about the situation regarding the now infamous brawler All Out, with the Elite set to return to AEW television. CM Punk has claimed that his dog was injured during the brawl, something which the Elite have pushed back on. We've got the latest details surrounding all of that. Mike Tyson, Iron Mike, is set to return to AEW next week. We've got details on his return to AEW television. Bandito and Juice Robinson reportedly have signed AEW contracts. Daddy Ass was kidnapped on Rampage last night. You've got to see this. Jon Moxley will be in a match on Dynamite next week with World Championship connotations, and a tournament is scheduled to culminate with a World Championship match at Winter is Coming. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. I was just watching the Fulham game, and Tony Khan's in London. He's in London to watch Fulham. I believe there's a Jacksonville Jaguars game there as well. Last night, he was in Connecticut for a live edition of Rampage, so a busy 72 hours for the AEW president, and certainly a lot going on in his wrestling company as well. Let's kick off talking about what else but the narrative, the confusion, the drama, the speculation, the rumors surrounding the post-AEW All-Out brawl involving the Elite, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, CM Punk, Ace Steel, etc. It continues to take twists and turns, and every single day there's more news, and we have more questions and less details, to be honest. So the narrative surrounding the post-AEW All-Out brawl involving the Elite, CM Punk, and Ace Steel continues to take, as I mentioned, many twists and turns with numerous conflicting stories. Of course, on Wednesday it was reported and rumoured that the Elite would be returning to AEW imminently. That indeed was accurate. They were backstage at Dynamite. There was a teaser played on Dynamite on AEW television hinting at the return of Omega and the Bucks imminently in the near future. However, just before that actually happened and aired on television, Wrestling Inc.'s senior news editor Nick Hausman reported that, according to Punk's camp, his dog Larry had two of his teeth loosened when Punk's door locker room was kicked in this now infamous brawl, and the door was kicked open by the Elite. It hit Larry in the face, who has had those teeth removed during a pre-scheduled veterinarian appointment just days after the fight. It was also reported at the time by Wrestling Inc. that Punk's camp said he felt threatened by the incident, and the subsequent investigation had yet to interview Ace Steel's wife, Lucy Guy, who was in the room at the time. She is actually allowed to speak publicly on the matter. It's wild. Now, from Dave Meltzer's perspective, he has written that the Elite are pushing back a lot on CM Punk's versions of events. Of course, he wrote previously as well that Chris Jericho confronted him, said he was a cancer to AEW and a detriment to the company, and he is now reporting that the Elite are pushing back on these claims about the involvement of injuring the dog Larry and having his teeth knocked out, etc. Of course, when it comes to Dave Meltzer, he is very close to the Elite. He's very close to Kenny Omega and Matt and Nick Jackson, so you have to take it with a pinch of salt. But he has written that sources close to the Elite are claiming that the version of events told by Punk's camp is a, quote, complete made-up story. Now, again, I wanted to give you as much detail as I possibly could here. So, one source has said, according to Meltzer, quote, "The dog story is a complete lie. When the altercation was happening, Punk was a total psycho and couldn't care less about the dog. Kenny picked up the dog to save him from being hurt and gave him to Mega. Mega being Mega Perek, AEW's chief legal officer." It continues, "Mega was holding the dog, screaming at Punk to stop. Punk didn't even register that his baby," and they put that in quotation marks, "baby was being held by a stranger in the middle of the fight, and it didn't stop him one bit. A completely made up story," said one person close to the other side. He, Punk, is losing in the investigation results and is desperate. There was a multiple weeks long investigation and this was oddly not discovered. Also, it so happened to be mentioned the moment there was news about the Bucks and Omega possibly coming back. It's insane that people would even humor this. That source noted about the entire investigation on the situation being completed and how it turned out. The person said they saw everything exactly as it happened and said they never spoke to Lucy Guy, as I mentioned, Ace Steel's wife, because she was a non-factor. Sat in the corner the whole time as her husband was throwing chairs, punches, and biting Kenny. So essentially, what Dave Meltzer is writing here, and again, make your own decision, make your own determination when it comes to Dave Meltzer. He's got his side, clearly, that he's leaning towards. It must be said, if you want to balance up eyewitness accounts versus others, there is a lot more, it would appear, credibility to this side of the argument, to the side of of the elite side of events, or the elite story. And as I mentioned, I think the elite side of things, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks side of thing, and CM Punk side of thing, I do think the truth is somewhere in the middle, because that's how life works, and that's how recollection of events works. That's how, legal proceedings work. But I think, in my opinion, and again, I wasn't there, just based off the information that we have seen, I think what actually happened is closer to the elite's version of events. Of course, you had CM Punk, his camp, his side of the story was the elite came in and kicked the door down. Just days later, they went, wow, he didn't actually kick the door down, as more of a phrase of speech. And I can understand, I can understand what the elite are saying here, or what Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks are saying here, when they're saying, well, you're telling me that this has got, when did this happen? Beginning of September. We're nearly at the end of October. We're nearly in November at this point. So for the last 2 months, while this has all been investigated, and the amount of stuff that has come out about this investigation, the amount of stuff that's come out about this incident, this is now the time that it comes out that a dog's teeth was basically knocked out. You would think that would come out pretty early, and from CM Punk's camp, you would think that would come out straight away, because once you start talking about animals being hurt, people say, whoa, I can understand. It's almost like CM Punk's actions would be justified. But the elite are saying, well, that never happened. None of it ever happened. That is a lie. That is all made up. And their perspective is, and I don't know if this is true, but their perspective is the reason that CM Punk is doing this now is because he's getting desperate, because they've done this investigation. AEW seemingly have come to a conclusion about what happened, or as close to the version of events that they're ever going to get. And they believe that the elites are telling mostly the truth in that situation. And it shouldn't be reported that that is the case, because the evidence is there that the elite are returning to television. As I said before, if there was any doubt about Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson being in the wrong or doing something bad that could legally jeopardize AEW or could cost AEW millions of dollars if CM Punk filed a lawsuit, or Ace Steel or his wife filed a lawsuit, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega wouldn't be on television right now. They'd still be suspended. The fact that they fired Ace Steel and they're bringing the elite back to television says that their legal team, their legal department has said to Tony Khan and those around him, it's fine. If it goes to a legal situation, if CM Punk or someone involved in this tries to sue us, if they try to take us to court, one will win, or two, it won't even get that far because it will be dismissed by a judge straight away. Nothing will happen, nothing will come of it. So now, and this is the thing, as I mentioned before too, is that you're going to have to make your own mind up. We're never going to know the full details. Everyone involved, apart from Ace Steel's wife, by all accounts, isn't allowed to talk about it. So we'll never really get that shoot interview. What we are going to get, though, is what we're getting now, which is sources close, or CM Punk's camp, or the Elite's camp. And in reality, what that is, it's these people talking to the journalists under condition of anonymity. That's really what it is, because on the record, they're not allowed to talk about it, because chances are they've signed NDAs, or from the Elite's perspective, it's you're coming back to television, you're no longer suspended, you cannot talk about it. If you talk about it, you'll be fired. We cannot talk about internal investigations, because if, and it's a big if, but if Punk does decide to sue us, then we could have a situation on our hands, because through depositions, through discovery, that could be brought up, and if that can be disputed, if it can be disputed, we could be in a lot of trouble. So the best thing to say is nothing at all. And from Punk's side of thing, again, he's actively trying to negotiate a buyout of his contract. So if he goes on the record, AEW could then possibly have grounds to not have a buyout of the contract and just fire him in the first place, depending on the details of his contract anyway, if it's a non-cut clause. So it's just all a big mess, isn't it? And the best thing for AEW right now is that they can get through this. The Elite return to television. Clearly, Tony Khan, for whether you think he's right or wrong, has taken the side of the Elite, and CM Punk is on his way out of the company. He will follow Ace Steel in being on his way out of the company, and the best thing for AEW is that they move on. The locker room has voted. We spoke about this previously. The locker room has decided they don't want to work with CM Punk, or the majority do not want to work with CM Punk anymore. Specifically, those big hitters in the locker room, those locker room leaders like Chris Jericho have said, no, I'm not going to work with him. And it's got to the point where even if Tony Khan wanted CM Punk to return, which I'm sure in the back of his mind, he's probably explored every single option of how could I bring him back, because there's still a lot of money on the table. Make no mistake, there's still a lot of money on the table that AEW and Tony Khan and CM Punk and everyone involved could make. Merchandise, sell-out arenas, pay-per-view buys, etc. But when the locker room says he's not welcome, we're not going to work with him, as an owner, as a president, as a CEO, as someone that hasn't handled the locker room drama and hasn't handled the locker room dynamic very well, he has to make a decision. And ultimately, he's backed into a corner because he has to let Punk go. And even that's complicated because, again, he's his highest paid guy, and we don't know the finer details of Punk's contract. So that's kind of the latest when it comes to that he said, she said stuff. It would appear that Punk's put in his his stance. He's still sticking to, they came in, they kicked the door down. And not only did they kick the door down, the door flung open, it hit my pet in the face, and it knocked his teeth loose, and eventually he had to get them pulled out. And from the Elite side, they're going, no, that definitely didn't happen. Punk's doing that because he's losing, and he was acting like a maniac. And you've got other parts of the story of Chris Jericho confronting him right after that, saying, you're a cancer. You're a cancer to this locker room and a detriment to the company. You've got to go. And Punk basically saying, stay out of my, it's none of your business. And then Jericho went and did the media scrub afterwards. It still is an insane situation. I don't doubt in my mind as well that this isn't over as well. We'll get more details, and even as time goes on, I believe we will get more details as well. Now, speaking of more details too, in said latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, we do have an update on Ace Steel, how he feels about the situation, and Steel is said to be feeling, quote, bummed about what happened and just wants to move past the incident. Apparently, Steel has been receiving a gigantic amount, we kind of touched on this yesterday, of online harassment following the fracas, although it's noted that all parties involved have been receiving a similar amount of attention online. As I said before, and to be honest, actually, Ace Steel's firing was really the canary in the mine kind of situation, the canary in the coal mine, because once we saw action being taken, i.e. Ace Steel being fired and released from the company, that was an indication this investigation had wrapped up. AEW felt confident enough to make serious decisions and decisive decisions based on what happened. They felt comfortable from a legal perspective that, again, if anything was brought towards them, they'd be comfortable and they could move on. And now it's a case of the company picking themselves up and trying to move on. It's still, irrespective of if the television's been good or bad the last few weeks, and I think it's been fine, there are still massive faults with AEW. There are still massive faults with the booking. There are still massive faults with, I think, how they tell stories and their booking of week-to-week television. I think we've seen the Tony Khan formula at this point, and it's a case of whether you like it or not. But what they have to do is move on from this now and try and rehabilitate their image publicly, because people will point back to this. People will point back to this year being the first really big testing year for AEW, certainly. Now that we're getting towards the tail end of it, it's quite interesting to look back on, actually, in retrospect, because what a year they've had. You had Cody Rhodes, one of the founding members, an EVP, leave the company, jump to the competitor because he wasn't happy about money, because he wasn't happy about his standing in the company, because he wanted to be world champion, and because Tony Khan realistically said, CM Punk is more valuable than you, I'm going to pay CM Punk more money. Well, come the end of the year, he doesn't have CM Punk or Cody Rhodes. That didn't work out for him. Of course, throughout the summer, they were snake bit when it came to injuries as well, when it came to Punk, when it came to Danielson, when it came to Adam Cole. Kenny Omega was out, but he came back. Then you had All Out, and it felt like, okay, there's a lot of drama going on. Remember as well, the Hangman Page stuff, CM Punk stuff was bubbling anyway prior to All Out, and you had other altercations there. Of course, it all blows up at All Out, and then you lose Omega, you lose the Bucks, you lose CM Punk as well. So yeah, you lose all of those situations, all of those people, and come the end of the year, you've got certain people on television like MJF knocking it out of the park every week, but going into full gear, it feels pretty cold. And again, it's this real testing year for AEW right now, and it is going to be interesting, ultimately, to see how they react as we head into 2023. And we're going to cover all of it, of course, on the channel. Mike Tyson, Iron Mike. This is one of the things I do like about AEW, is the relationship they have with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson will be returning to AEW programming next week as a guest announcer. Yeah, as a guest announcer for the live episode of AEW Rampage at the Jim Whelan Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, New Jersey, the same building where the boxing legend scored several victories on pay-per-view in fights in the 1980s. The announcement came during last night's live AEW Rampage in Uncasville, Connecticut. Of course, Tyson last appeared on AEW television in April of last year on an episode of Dynamite where he served as a special guest enforcer for a singles match between Chris Jericho and Dax Harwood. The match was was held in the lead up to the Inner Circle versus Pinnacle Blood and Guts match. After the match, Jericho welcomed Tyson as an official member of the Inner Circle, moments after Tyson knocked out Cash Wheeler for trying to strike Jericho with a baseball bat as well. So it wouldn't be the first time. Of course, he's made a couple of appearances for AEW, Double or Nothing 2020. He made an appearance on the subsequent Dynamite, all kind of involving Jericho. His appearance at Double or Nothing in 2020 was about the TNT Championship with Lance Archer and Cody Rhodes. But interesting to see Mike Tyson back on AEW television. Certainly a reason to tune in to a show that not many people watch. I think Tony Khan had said recently that Rampage was going to be live most weeks now for the remainder of the year, which is good for them. It'll be interesting to see what the numbers are like on Monday. I don't expect them to be massively high because I think Rampage has got its audience now on Fridays, which is about 500,000, unless you give them really, really something to tune in for, but they don't tend to do that anymore. Mike Tyson coming in is a ratings draw, and it'll be interesting to see what he does on live television always. To say that he's going to be a special guest commentator, if that's for the entire hour, that could be a train wreck. and I don't know if that's a good thing or I don't know if it's a bad thing. Mike Tyson is not exactly known for being completely eloquent on the microphone, especially on live television, calling pro wrestling. That could be a disaster. I could see a situation where maybe he calls like the first segment and then someone confronts him and that's him done for the show. If they think he's going to do an entire hour or 45 minutes of broadcasting, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But again, maybe that's something to tune in for. I know I will be. Certainly see what Iron Mike has to say. Now, let's talk about some new signings. It's been rumored about Bandido, but officially now it would appear that he's put pen to paper. The roster is shuffling around quite a bit in AEW. Obviously, the Bucks and Kenny Omega are on their way back following suspension. CM Punk seems to be on the exit of the company. Maria Kanellis, Matt Taven, and Mike Bennett seem to be coming in, and a new report seems to suggest they will be joined by two faces AEW fans are familiar with. Yesterday, on PW Insider Elite, Mike Johnson revealed there will soon be two more wrestlers that will become All Elite in the near future. He said, quote, "I can tell you that we have officially heard that both Bandido and Juice Robinson have signed AEW agreements," Johnson said. "I don't know length, I don't know time, but they are officially going to be with the company going forward." It was a month ago today, or yesterday I think it was, that Bandido and Robinson appeared on Dynamite. Robinson, who of course is the husband of current AEW Interim Women's World Champion Toni Storm, was defeated by longtime rival Jon Moxley in a World Title Eliminator match. Bandido, meanwhile, came up short in the main event while challenging Chris Jericho, the Ocho, for the Ring of Honor World Championship, which Bandido previously held. Days after the show, it was reported that AEW had serious interest in Robinson. Bandido got more attention. A report emerged about a week or so later suggesting that Bandido had signed with AEW. He disputed the reports. He did confirm that he had received offers from AEW, but also WWE as well. But he was leaning heavily towards signing with AEW. It would appear that he has now done that. Two big signings for AEW. Every time AEW does a signing now, you get that weird thing on Twitter where they go, another game changer for AEW. Game changer. They're good signings. The AEW roster is bloated, certainly. Again, the key to fixing it is Ring of Honor, I believe. And in terms of splitting those rosters up and having Ring of Honor have a weekly television show, I think is the key. That is coming, by all accounts, in 2023. We don't know where, we don't know when. But two signings there would be good names, and certainly names that WWE would have wanted. They wanted Bandido. Obviously, Juice Robinson was in WWE NXT a million years ago as CJ Parker. I don't know if he had ever any interest in going back. I think considering his wife is in AEW, makes a lot more sense for him. So two big signings for AEW. Interesting to see what the plans are for them going forward. Hopefully it's more than other signings have been, where they're signed and then they don't really do anything for a while. Hopefully there are plans for them. We'll have to wait and see. Last night on Rampage, this was... this is wild. This is... If you haven't watched the show, go and watch it because you won't even believe I'm telling the truth here. There was a kidnapping. I mean, is it a kidnap? There was an arse-snapping on AEW Rampage as Daddy Ass himself, Billy Gunn, was kidnapped. I didn't even knock my microphone over. That's how this is. I can't believe it's real. He was kidnapped and had his ability to ever scissor again threatened. Hear me out. After Keith Lee had decisively squashed Serpentico, Tony Schiavone went into the ring to interview Lee about Swerve and Our Glory. However, the segment was interrupted by Anthony Bowens and Max Caster as the Acclaimed accused Keith Lee of a horrible crime. According to Bowens, they had been attempting to get in touch with Daddy Ass all day, and he had been completely ghosted. A very uncool move that was unlike Gunn. While Keith Lee denied any knowledge of Billy Gunn's location, his tag team partner Swerve Strickland appeared on the big screen, and in a spooky vignette, which it must be said was actually shot very well. The camera was right in Swerve Strickland's face, and it did look pretty good actually. It was revealed that not only had Swerve Strickland arse-snapped Billy Gunn, but he was also threatening his scissoring fingers with pliers. I can't even get through it with a straight face. He was threatening his scissoring fingers with pliers. Not to be messed with again, Swerve pledged that Gunn would not be able to interfere in Swerve and Our Glory's AEW Tag Team Championship match against the Acclaimed, saying it was spooky season. Swerve seemed to have done something dastardly to Daddy Ass. So I don't know if we're going to see Billy Gunn without fingers on next week's Dynamite. The execution of it was okay. The thing is, I get it, because the Acclaimed are so over the top that it kind of works, but it kind of doesn't at the same time. It was ridiculous. It's one of those things where it's in what is known as the pro wrestling loophole, where if you really take just half a step back and think of the ridiculousness that you're watching, that first of all, Swerve Strickland, I guess, needs to be charged with kidnapping and mutilation of ripping someone's fingers off with pliers. But it's pro wrestling and it's the Acclaim, so I guess they get away with it. I don't know. I don't know. Jon Moxley is going to be in another World Title Eliminator match next week on Dynamite. He's going to be going up against Lee Moriarty. He faced Matt Menard in a match last night, but he was approached by another foe on the ramp in a shocking move after the big beatdown on Moxley and MJF to end Dynamite. Stokely Hathaway approached Moxley and challenged him to a match against Lee Moriarty next week on Dynamite. Not one to back down from a fight, Moxley agreed. So Moxley is going to be facing Lee Moriarty on Dynamite, and Jon Moxley is going to be beating Lee Moriarty on Dynamite, of course. Winter is coming, and so is an AEW World Championship match. On last night's episode of Rampage, it was announced that an AEW World Title Eliminator tournament will soon be underway, with the finals taking place at the Full Gear pay-per-view on November 19. The announcers did not specify when the tournament will begin. It was revealed, though, that the winner will receive their world title match at Winter is Coming on December 14. As of this recording, Dante Martin and All Ego Ethan Page have been confirmed as the first two entrants in the tournament. I would say, when I saw this on the show, I went, oh, really? Because we get... How often has there not been a tournament going on AEW television this year? Really? Like, if it's not for a world championship or the Owen Hart Cup tournament or a women's eliminator tournament, whatever, there's always a tournament going on AEW television. However, I'm not totally against this one because this is somewhat traditional. They do this every year. They always have the World Title Eliminator tournament. This will be the third year in a row that they've had a World Title Eliminator tournament that culminates at Full Gear, and the winner gets the title match at Winter is Coming. They had it last year. Bryan Danielson defeated Miro and faced Hangman Page. The year prior, they had Kenny Omega defeat Hangman Page at Full Gear, and then, of course, he beat Jon Moxley at Winter is Coming. So it's not the first time that they've done it, so I'm not totally against it, but still... a lot of tournaments on AEW television right now. So there you go, guys. That's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts about today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.